Damodar ke Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasa Gaura. One more time. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasa Gaura. Come on, say Haribo. Everyone say Haribo. Together. Hare Krishna. Krishna, 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Raise our arms together. Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So blessed to be here during this monthly party. Everyone say Haribo. Sometimes people say, I wish those guys with kids would just be quiet in the temple and just leave the temple room. I always tell them, remember that some of us who are doing Kirtan now for hours on end used to be those little kids in the temple room. So be kind to the parents of the little kids in the temple. Those little kids turn into Kirtan boys. Sure, it's funny because it's called a catch-22. How do you raise a kid to love Kirtan if that kid never gets to be in Kirtan? Because they're making too much noise. So it's like the responsibility of the older devotees to be a little bit tolerant, actually. This is Malati Guru. Can you get Malati maybe a microphone? She just wants to say, I apologize. Thank you, Prabhu. Please hold your comment because everyone can hear you if the mic is there.
The very sound of praise. And on the other side, keeping in mind, Sri Prabhupada also was so kind to the children and very tolerant. And at the same time, he did expect the parents to keep a little modicum control.
Right. This is our Vaishnava culture. We model behavior for each other. Thank you, David. Someone's playing Kirtan over here on the speaker. It's really ecstatic in here. It's like coming in all directions. I've been asked to say something about Sri Damodar Leela, pastimes of the Lord this time of the year, and you couldn't find someone less qualified to speak about Damodar Leela. I guess it's like Malati Devi said, I'm getting older, so people think I'm like a senior guy now. But I'm only senior in my grayness. My spiritual advancement hasn't kicked in yet. So, to honor Amal's request, everyone who's talking right now say Haribo. Haribo. Everyone who's quiet right now say Haribo. Haribo. So, to honor Amal's request, to try and contribute something, I'm going to try and speak something. My Guru Maharaj's blessings, Srila Prabhupada's blessings of the Acharyas. Try to say something about Radha Damodar and Damodar Leela.
Haribo.
Can you raise this mic up?
Another option, ask to take that conversation.
Let's a little more volume if possible. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. We also, so we have the story of Damodar Leela that we're aware of Krishna stealing the butter. And that's quite famous. Anyone here has not heard the story of Krishna stealing the butter? Who has not heard the story of Krishna stealing the butter? Wow, incredible. And then we have also the aspect of Radha Damodar. Where is Radha in the pastime of Krishna stealing the butter? So that's an interesting thing. And then of course we have also our deities of Radha Damodar in ISKCON, which also have a Leela. So, just like the name Damodar, which means he whose belly is bound with rope, all of these pastimes are expressed by the Lord to bind us to Him, to tie our minds into love for the Lord. Kavi Karnapur, I was just blessed to read something from Kavi Karnapur. Kavi Karnapur was, you could say, a junior associate of Lord Chaitanya. Kavi Karnapur is the son of Shivananda Sain. Who here knows Shivananda Sain? So Shivananda Sain was a devotee who would lead pilgrims to the holy places. So this is his son, such a blessed young devotee. So he wrote a play that in many ways establishes the philosophy of Lord Chaitanya in a theatrical presentation. His guru named Srinath Goswami said this beautiful thing. You should always hear the holy names of the Lord. Because by hearing the holy names of the Lord, your heart becomes attracted to the Lord. So you could say that hearing the holy names of the Lord means, thank you, that's good. Someone there has to be speaking the holy names of the Lord. So it indicates that you should have association with devotees to always hear the holy names of the Lord. But then he says, what if there's nobody there? Then you should yourself recite the holy names of the Lord so that you can hear the holy names of the Lord. Why? For the simple reason that by hearing, your mind becomes attracted to the Lord. The Lord Himself is the source of that attractive energy. It's not that we have to make some level of advancement before the Lord can attract us. The Lord can attract us whenever He wants. So you could say, well, then why isn't everyone just constantly filled with the love of the Lord? Of course, we put so many impediments in the way. But this simple idea that if there's no one there to speak the Katha of the Lord or sing the holy name of the Lord, then you do it yourself. And then you hear yourself speaking about the Lord and Krishna's present, and then He will attract you, even from your own Katha. Isn't that a nice, beautiful thing? So if you ever find yourself alone somewhere, sing songs of Krishna, and Krishna will be present, and then He will attract you. So Damodar, in these different ways, is binding us to Him. An interesting point that I always find about this idea of binding. The word yoga, it means to relink or connect, connection. So all these yogas, we hear about all these different yogas, people pursuing yogas in the world. It's just speaking about connecting, ultimately reconnecting, binding back with our spiritual identity, with the Lord. And a fascinating thing about that word is it's the same, so the Sanskrit, many of you may know this, but the Sanskrit word Yoga is the root word of the English word yoke. And if anyone's ever been on a farm, you know what a yoke is. A yoke is what ties the two oxen together for plowing. It's called a yoke. So a yoke comes from the word yoga. Okay? The word religion, sometimes people like to say, we're not into this yoga stuff, we're religious people. The word religion comes from the word relegare, which means to reconnect, to tie back. It's the same word from a different root, Latin. So religion or yoga, all these things are just about tying ourselves back to the Lord, binding ourselves back to the Lord. And Damodar exemplifies that in such a beautiful way, as you all know. Krishna was being incredibly naughty. He was very young. He was just between the ages when crawling was still happening and also standing and walking and running was happening. Just that little sweet time. Any parents here know that time. Crawling sometimes is still more functional than walking or running when they're really little. So, you can do this. So, Mother Yashoda, she's still nursing Krishna. And because she's a farm mom. I love thinking about this in Vrindaban because Vrindaban has deep farm roots. So Mother Yashoda is a farm mom. That means she's very busy. Lots of stuff going on all the time. Mother Yashoda is nursing Krishna, but she's got milk on the stove. How do you do it? You gotta multitask. So Mother Yashoda's nursing Krishna, and she's hearing the milk, and she's hearing it start to sizzle on the stove. And so she's doing her service, and she puts Krishna down, and she runs to deal with the milk. Many of you may have heard this. Forgive me. I'm just basically like a sewage pipe. Whatever rain falls from wherever eventually gets down to me. So all these things, whatever, I'm just catching whatever droplets of water I can. So you guys all know all this stuff. You've heard it all from senior devotees, much more elevated than me. But please forgive me. I'm just catching whatever droplets of water I can and offering them back up. Hare Krishna. So, the milk in the spiritual world is fully conscious. Now don't ask me how that works when you want to drink the milk. I don't know how this works. This would be what they say above my pay grade. But the emotions in the spiritual world, they're not fake emotions. Sometimes we, with our material consciousness, we think like that. But these are, it's just like, everybody knows Krishna. No, these devotees are sincere emotions that these devotees are feeling. It's not a joke for them. Because the spiritual world is the source. That lila that's happening in that moment is the source of everything. So that devotee's ecstasy that they're feeling in that moment is the source of everything. That's where everything comes from. So that devotee is there thinking, what are we going to do? And the milk next to this milk says, what are you talking about? He says that what's the point of our life? What do you mean, what's the point of our life? Krishna's going to drink us. We're here warming up for Krishna to drink us. And this milk says, it's not going to happen. I'm feeling incredibly depressed today. The other milk says, what do you mean it's not going to happen? Krishna's going to drink us. Krishna is drinking milk from his mother's breast. Do you know he's never going to stop? He's just going to drink until he's full. And then what's the point of our lives? What's the point of being milk if we can't be drunk by Krishna? And the other milk says, really? Really? He starts to get agitated. He's telling me, this Krishna's not even going to drink us. What are we doing here? All of us milk. And they just start in their ecstasy, they just said, forget it. There's no point in living. And they said, we're just going to dive into the fire to commit suicide. That's what the acharyas say. The milk said, that's it. we're committing suicide. I don't know if milk is 1 or 2. That was a little bit of a speculation. Could be 1 milk, I'm not sure how long. And the milk, plural or singular, dives into the fire. Mother Yashoda says, I've got to, anyone who knows what it's like to clean up a stove that has milk, right? Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, that's all I got to say. So that milk, so she runs, I gotta deal with this. And she puts Krishna down. Oh my, Krishna is so upset. You know what it's, I don't know, it's like being interrupted, it's like doing a kirtan and someone comes in and makes it, Hare Krishna, sorry, I need to make an announcement. There's a car that's sitting, you're like, what? Krishna's in his milk leela, he's like, Hare Krishna, he's so in ecstasy. And then all of a sudden, what's going on? He's on the floor, he's upset. He's so upset at Mother Yashoda, how did she do this to me? I'm doing my duty, I'm drinking the milk. Why isn't she doing her duty of feeding me the milk? This is totally inappropriate. Krishna's so frustrated. So he wanders off. And as usual, Krishna's looking for some trouble. And he goes into the storeroom, and there he sees, you can imagine the Hollywood lighting, the spotlight on the hanging pot of yogurt. And Krishna starts thinking, making a plan. So Krishna gets his friends, you know how this all works, they gets his friends together, Balaram, and sometimes they'll leave the windows open and the monkeys start to cooperate. So it's really a kind of a crazy mob scene in there. And sometimes the boys will climb on top of each other. So if it's too high, one boy, then another boy, then another boy, and they're climbing up to get to this thing. But sometimes if there's not enough boys around, Krishna will just look for something to throw. Hits the pot, it's pouring all over the floor. Sometimes it's described that Krishna, he eats so much butter and milk and yogurt that his belly's full. And then he calls to the monkeys, and all the monkeys start coming in. And you can imagine smearing everywhere. And then when the monkeys are full, because they had too much butter, then Krishna sings, just see, even the monkeys don't want this terrible butter. This is how Krishna's in a sour mood. Krishna's the source of everything. He's the Supreme Lord. He's the fullest of everything. Like they say, Krishna's the supreme enjoyer. But let's think about that for a second. Krishna's the supreme enjoyer. Have you ever seen someone go like, that guy is a real sense enjoyer? You look at a magazine, you're like, whoa, that guy is a real sense enjoyer. Like there's a certain personality recently who had a diamond installed in his forehead, who happened to see the devotee of the Harnam. I don't know if you saw. So he had a diamond installed in his forehead. That guy is a real sense enjoyer. Apparently the diamond was recently ripped out in the middle of a concert. It's like on the floor of the anyway. So you look around and think, that guy's a real sense enjoyer. Krishna is the supreme enjoyer. We know the story of Govardhan. Krishna comes as Govardhan, and they offer him lakes of sweetgrass. And you know what Krishna says? That's what Krishna says. Krishna's the supreme enjoyer. Can you imagine? Supreme enjoyer. However much you can give, Krishna wants more. Supreme enjoyer. So Krishna's standing there and says, this butter is substandard. What is this? Let's describe this substandard butter here for a second. Substandard Krishna, oh, this is butter. Low class, even the monkeys won't. This butter is made from the milk of Mother Yashoda's cows, but specifically 8 cows. The 8 cows that give the sweetest, most tasty milk. She hand milks those cows for this, specifically the butter that she gives to Krishna. Those cows, those 8 cows, are fed grass by the hand of Mother Yashoda. That grass is grown from the milk of other cows that Mother Yashoda decides, these cows give the best milk. Let me use that milk to water the grass in this section, to take that grass and feed to these 8 cows, so that Krishna can have the best, most rich, tasty butter. And this is the butter Krishna's saying, look at this stuff. Even the monkeys won't eat it. All of a sudden he hears, Kana, run for your life! Krishna's like trying to clean up, like, oh my God, what have I done? And Mother Yashoda's getting closer. And he just starts trying with his little fat legs. He's just like, run! And Mother Yashoda walks in and she sees, it's like a disaster. Broken pot, monkey footprints everywhere, but she sees this one set of footprints, butter footprints, running that way. So, she knows those footprints. Everyone in Vrindaban knows those footprints. If you inspect them closely, you see all kinds of beautiful sacred articles in those footprints. So she starts chasing Krishna. So I feel I don't want to talk too much, but Amal's not here, so until he comes to lead Kirtan, I'll just keep going. I feel like we should be doing Kirtan, so if someone wants to tell Amal. So Mother Yashoda, she's chasing Krishna. And it's described, it's so beautiful, it's described that the flowers in Mother Yashoda's hair see her exerting so much energy to serve the Lord. And in that moment they realize, what are we doing on her head? Mother Yashoda is such a great devotee. We're so proud that we're sitting on her head, and those flowers dive at her lotus feet to touch her lotus feet. So little details like this teach us something, in my humble opinion. They teach us that in every interaction with devotees is contained the entirety of our spiritual lives. His Holiness Bhakti-tirtha Maharaj made this point as well. He said that in any interaction we have with anyone is contained the entirety of our spiritual consciousness. The way we deal with someone is the way that we're dealing with Guru and the way that we're dealing with Krishna. And this awareness, this consciousness, just hear Krishna, the sound effects were a little late. This was Krishna being taken off Mother Yashoda's breast. We'll have to work on our timing. So these flowers, they're Vaishnavas, and they're throwing themselves at Mother Yashoda's feet. So if we're a little, what's the word? Insensitive, then we don't see the details of what's going on. For example, as a musician, so I've been playing music now my whole life. So as a musician, I can relax even in a very wild or intense kirtan and hear space between the musical notes. I don't get so stressed out. Whereas a young devotee who's just learning how to lead kirtan, if something doesn't go right, it's very stressful. Right? Some of these devotees, like Vasudeva was just leading kirtan, it kind of doesn't matter what the mridanga player does or what, like, it doesn't, the kirtan can fall apart and he'll just pick it up and keep going because it's become so comfortable. So when we're neophyte in something, it's stressful. So sometimes in our interaction with devotees, we get stressed out. Like, I have my service to do, this devotee's like, in trouble, but the goal is to become masterful in our devotional service so that it's easeful, so that in the midst of all this, we're able to have every single interaction with every devotee be filled with sweetness and love and respect. So Mother Yashoda is described, Mother Yashoda's clothes begin to become loosened, her hair is falling, the flowers are falling, and Krishna sees that she's struggling so much, so Krishna allows himself to be caught. Very important and beautiful point here. Lord Chaitanya spoke what's called Achintya Veda Ved philosophy. And in many ways set to rest so many arguments that have been stretching for centuries upon centuries, and disagreements and misunderstandings and squabbles amongst different great spiritual personalities. But one very important point that Lord Chaitanya expressed, that's at the heart of all of this, is that karma, activity, and jnana, knowledge, can never bring you bhakti. They can be in service of bhakti, but they can never bring you bhakti. You can in bhakti use jnana and use karma to get the mercy of the Lord, but they won't give you bhakti by themselves. So with bhakti, all those things have value, but without bhakti, they just are like a dwarf trying to reach the moon. And why this is important is this idea of descending mercy or descending knowledge. We study Bhagavatam and all these things. We learn, we take Bhakti Shastri and we do these, whatever we can, courses, expanding. But why? Why do we do all this? For the same reason that we do Kirtan. To attract the mercy of the Lord. Because there's only one way that you get Krishna. When Krishna wants. He's completely independent. That's how it goes. So it's not that you can get to a place and you're like, Krishna, I have my Bhakti Shastri. Now, when I call your name, you come. Right? What did Krishna say to Sudama Brahman? He's like, what do you have behind your back? Like, what is that other thing? So Krishna's comes when he wants to come. So what to do? We do everything that we do to attract the Lord. That's the essence of Lord Chaitanya's expressing this. All these things are simply to attract the Lord. So Mother Yashoda, through her efforts, Mother Yashoda attracted Damodar's love and mercy. She's working so hard. Let me allow myself to be caught. Allow myself to be caught. So Mother Yashoda catches Krishna and she's panting, she's frustrated, she's sweating, she's red in the face, she's like angry, she's worried. Krishna is so naughty, what is he supposed to do? He's like constantly getting into difficulty and trouble. So she says, that's it, Krishna, I have to teach you a lesson. You ever seen, I always talk about this, you ever seen those people, sometimes they have this little wild crazy kid in the supermarket, and he's got a harness on, it's like a Tasmanian devil. The parents like holding harness. So Krishna's the source of all that. Krishna's like, Krishna's, I gotta tie you up until I can finish my chores. You gotta stay here, time out. So Krishna says, oh yeah? So Mother Yashoda, she takes her rope and she tries to tie him up, and we all know what happens. What happens? 2 fingers too short. So this is this point. One finger represents the devotee's sincere, as Malati Devi said this morning, authentic effort to try and serve the Lord, please the Lord. And the other, Krishna's inconceivable achintya. That's actually, I don't want to distract from the point, but actually we've been learning the achintya part of Achintya Veda Ved is the most important part. Inconceivable. The Lord is inconceivable. One of the reasons why Vaishnava philosophy begins to dominate in these discussions of Advaita is because someone will say, see, that point, that's impossible. And the devotee will say, Achintya. The Lord is inconceivable. So this is our festival here. We're showing up. I heard Sachinandan Maharaj say that you knock on the door. You knock on the door. How long do you knock? Until the Lord decides to open. That's how long you knock. Ready to do Kirtan? Wow, you set me up.